obviously more fallout from the Giants and Flores, and now Patrick Graham on the clock. NBA stuff involving the single biggest fall from grace I think we've seen in a very, very long time.
James Harden, I agree.
Okay, make that twofold. And maybe if we want to, just give Evan a moment later today, a little baseball news as well. Good afternoon, Evan. How are you today, kid?
I had a weird day. For
A
some
weird
reason,
day? Why is that?
I had an urge to listen to Limp Bizkit, and I listened to 2 hours straight of Limp Bizkit.
You can't listen to 2 hours of Limp Bizkit. They don't have 2 hours of music worth listening to.
You can listen to the same song over and over again.
Oh. I hope it just isn't for the nookie. I hope you. I hope you listen to something else.
I listened to songs I didn't even know existed.
They actually put a new album out somewhat recently.
I heard one of the songs. I don't remember the name, and it didn't even sound like Limp Bizkit. I'm like, is that Fred Durst? Like, what is happening?
Were you working
right
out or something? Were
No.
you going for a walk? Were you were you eating eggs?
I was driving to work, and I just had an urge to listen to Limp Bizkit. I
You
have no
dislike
idea
the
why.
morning show that much that you turned on 2 hours of Limp Bizkit?
To be fair, it was more an hour and 10 minutes of Limp Bizkit, but it was straight up limp for an hour and 10 minutes, and I don't know why.
I mean, rack that. All good, Evan. Whatever gets you through, whatever got you to work. And hopefully, if you are driving around, just slow down, be safe. That ice is obviously starting to become an issue, and will be for a good portion of the day. A lot of nothing this morning, just rain and all that. All the schools were being shut down. Everyone's in panic mode, and it was raining. Yeah, that's what it was.
I know.
So, interesting thing on the Giants. Twofold. Number one, it came out very late in our show yesterday. The page and a half, almost two-page statement that the New York Giants put out denying all the allegations from Brian Flores. And, when it came out, we reacted to it immediately without really digesting all of it. It was, hey, let's read it. Let's react to it. I went back home last night and read it again, and then read it again this morning. And there's an aspect of it that I think needs to be talked about more in depth than we did yesterday. And I say that on the heels of recognizing that Patrick Graham apparently is interviewing for every defensive coordinator job open, which tells me that Patrick Graham may not want to be here anymore, which is problematic in relation to the Flores stuff. But let me start with the statement, Evan. The only thing I take out of the statement that makes me think the Giants are in complete safe haven when it comes to the allegations against them from Brian Flores is the fact that they put out his schedule that day. Brian Flores came in the morning and did an interview with the ownership group, did an interview with the GM, then after that met with the PR staff. After that, met with another group of guys, and there were like 4 or 5 different groups of executives and other personnel that he spent considerable time with over the course of what amounts to like a full day over there at the Quest Center with the New York Giants. To me, if the New York Giants are merely interviewing him because they want to obey by the Rooney rules of the NFL, they could have done that by having a 2-hour meeting with the owners, a follow-up with the GM, a little lunch, another meeting with the GM, and thanks so much, really appreciate your time. The New York Giants legitimately gave him the whole Megillah, right? They did everything.
It doesn't matter.
But to me, it does matter.
It doesn't matter if you offered the job prior to that interview.
They didn't.
What does that matter?
My point is this. The Giants, again, I wasn't in the room. I don't know what they talked about. I don't know how those meetings and interviews went. He seemed not to be bothered by the line of questioning.
Right. He didn't think
we did ask that.
He didn't think the interview was the same as the Denver interview he went on a few years earlier where they were disinterested and didn't care.
To me, when the Giants say that we gave him full consideration, at least in the amount of time he physically spent at the Giant facility, the Giants did right by him. The Giants put him through a full-fledged, full day, multiple meetings, multiple people, and didn't wink, wink, bring him in, run him through the building real quick, send him on his way, and then turn around and sign Daboll.
Like, obviously,
So I give the Giants, like that, of all the things that have come out.
It's sort of irrelevant.
To me, it's not.
But if they had offered the job to Daboll a day before that, Why is that relevant that the meeting was a long meeting?
Because to me, I'm starting to think that maybe the Giants didn't offer him the job.
Well, no, Craig, that's different. If you're telling me the Giants never offered the job to Brian Daboll before interviewing Brian Flores and Leslie Frazier, you're right.
Yeah.
The Giants may have done nothing wrong. I'm just answering your point that the length of the meeting is irrelevant in terms of, well, if they offered the job to Daboll a day before anyway, it doesn't matter how long the meeting was.
It does in this regard. I've given this a lot of thought, okay?
Right.
I believe they did tell Brian Daboll that the job is his. I believe they told him that.
Prior to interviewing Flores.
Yes, I believe they did do that. I believe all the smoke that's been out there about that. I'm willing to accept that that took place. I am. You know, they got Shane first.
Right.
One showed Shane's the GM. I believe, as any one of us would do, familiarity, friendship, loyalty, Daboll's my guy.
Right.
So I can accept and buy the fact that they did that, or Shane did that, whomever, doesn't matter, a rep of the Giants did it. All right? I also believe, because you don't know if you're going to get a deal done, it's easy for us to say, of course, that's an easy contract to sign. It's going to be 5 years, $25 million or thereabouts, so we're going to get that deal done pretty quickly, right? I believe that John Mara liked Brian Flores so much that he wanted to make sure they did a thorough interview with him just in case. Because if the Daboll thing somehow goes south before you sign the contract,
it's murky now, Craig.
We are going to sign Flores in a minute because we know for a fact the owner happens to like him a lot.
So let's take that at face value.
It's almost like hedging a bet.
Okay. And
right?
let's say you're right about the way you laid that out, because it's very possible.
Okay, go.
Does that violate the Rooney Rule?
And I don't know if it does.
That's the problem. Like, and I can understand half of the audience saying that does violate the Rooney Rule, and half the audience saying no, it doesn't. But that's the crux of this, Craig.
But here, I get it. I'm with you.
Okay.
And here's the thing, and I don't want to be cute about it, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. Anyone listening to our show right now that has been involved in business at any level, I'm sure could read us chapter and verse of times in their lives when they thought they had a deal done and the deal went south before it got signed. I think that happens more often than we could ever imagine.
Totally agree.
So if that's the case, and again, letter of the law is until a contract is signed, you don't have an agreement. I could stand here, and I feel strongly about it today, and I'll be honest, I didn't 2 days ago. The Giants statement and that timeline, I don't care about what they said about anything else, the timeline of how they interviewed him, to me, is the crux to me now, and I didn't have that information 2 days ago because the Giants didn't announce it until very late, like 6:15 yesterday. To me, the New York Giants wanted to make sure if the Daboll thing went south and he didn't sign it, because we all know that the Dolphins, by all reports, were very interested in Daboll. We don't know if they're going to call his agent and go, oh, the Giants offered you 25, we'll give you 35. We don't know if that was going to happen. That if it did happen, they wanted to be ready to pounce on Brian Flores.
But if they've decided...
Giants did nothing wrong then.
If they decided prior to interviewing Brian Flores, this is our head coach, barring a setback in negotiations, that to me sounds like a violation of the rule.
Again, and I went and read the rule.
That's the point. That's the point of it, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's the whole point of it. Yes.
Right. So you're saying...
But if the deal's not signed, it's not a deal. And I know that's cute. I don't want that to sound cute.
No, but what you have to go back to is the intention of this rule. When this thing was written and rewritten over the years, you laid out a very possible, plausible, even likely scenario. Yeah. I think it's very likely the way you laid it out. Is that a violation?
Well, listen, I guess
because, yes,
the NFL is going to have to figure that out.
A negotiation can fall apart. You're right. The Giants would be doing a terrible job if they didn't have a backup plan in case Brian Daboll said no. Brian Daboll decided to go to Miami. The negotiations went haywire. Of course, no one would dispute that. But if you went in to negotiating that contract before interviewing Brian Flores and treated Flores like a backup plan, that does feel like a violation.
Yeah, listen, it might be. You could say it's somewhat untoward. You could say maybe it's not even fair to Brian Flores. You know, that they went into that interview in their minds. They really do like him, but he is a backup. He's an if this happens, then that.
And then that's what you're saying.
And
you're saying
I
he was
believe
the
that's the way it happened.
Okay, now so if we believe that, that's the question you got to ask yourself. Is that violating the Rooney Rule? And how would you feel if that was you in Brian Flores'
Well, that's a
case?
very good question. I understand why Flores is upset. I get that. So I think this is one of those really strange cases, and I want to be fair. Across, on Monday, I was anti-Giants in this 100%. I thought they had absolutely wronged Brian Flores. I did. Or, whenever the story first came out a couple days ago. I did. Yesterday, I wasn't even sure how the Giants came up with some things in their press release until I realized that the information was out there. Having read it and reread it, I think it happened exactly how I'm saying. So the question now is, if I'm Flores, am I pissed? Yeah. Because I did have that whole day of interviewing.
And you're treated as a backup.
And I thought I really had a chance at the job. And the reality is, my chance at the job was if the other guy goes south.
Right. So you weren't really given a chance at the job based on the way you're describing it.
I also understand business. And business is, until that guy signs the piece of paper, there is no deal. And I can speak from personal experience, like, without getting too into it. Before I came back to the Fan, I had an offer. I had an agreement. I had money worked out, years worked out. It was done, right? So I've been.
Yeah, but if you're
I've lived
going
it.
for a job, are you really getting an opportunity at that job if you're being treated as a backup plan?
So here's the end all rub of it. Did the Giants have a responsibility to tell Brian Flores, you are our second choice?
Can you imagine that?
If Dable doesn't sign, you are the guy. You wowed us in the interview. It's why we had you meet with all these people. But we owe it to you to tell you that it's your job if that guy goes south on us. The answer is no.
No, nor would they ever say that.
Right. The answer is
Don't
no.
you think what would have solved this is Brian Flores interviewing for the job prior to Brian Dable?
Now, that part of it I'll never change on. It would have been very easy had the Giants changed the order of the interviews.
Yeah.
100%.
Because then you're not entering negotiations prior to ever interviewing Brian Dable.
So I want to be clear to the New York Giants. The best thing they did yesterday, and the only thing that matters to me, you can view it however you want to view it, I'm just speaking for myself on this, is putting out that itinerary of the day Brian Flores spent at their facility. Because for me, that's a game changer. That is not the action of a team.
I still don't get that logic, though, because you're saying that if you pretend, and I'm not saying the Giants did.
Yeah.
So let me walk you through that.
I think they interviewed him saying, if Dable goes to Miami,
No.
we want to make sure we did this interview right.
No, I get that. I understand the Giant end of things. But you're saying that a sham interview isn't a sham interview if you give the guy 12 hours and give him a whole day, even if you've already decided someone else is the head coach. Not using the Giants as an example because I see the way you laid it out.
Yep.
You've literally decided. You've even made the deal. But because you gave the guy 12 hours, it's not a sham?
No.
So you pretend well, that means it's not a sham?
I don't have that deal done yet.
No. I'm not talking anymore.
And that's a part of this.
I understand, but you mentioned the day and the itinerary as a game changer, and I'm wondering why would that be a game changer?
It's a game changer because I'm connecting it to the fact it's not a standalone. In connection to the fact that we're waiting for Dable to make up his mind that we're getting.
But you've
we're
offered
ready to
him
go.
the job already.
Yeah, but that happens all day long.
Yeah,
right?
but there isn't a rule in a lot of other employment opportunities that you need to interview two external minority candidates. There's a rule in the NFL, and you're basically saying, hey, look, you can treat the rule as a backup plan. That's your interpretation of the rule.
Does it go against the spirit of the rule? Yes, it does. I'm not denying that. It goes against the spirit of the rule, and in retrospect, it should have changed the order of the interviews for sure, especially if Shane thought or talked to Dable offline and Dable was going to go with him. From Jump Street, we don't know that yet, but I imagine that's probably the case. Yeah, they should have done it in reverse order. I agree. So it goes against the spirit of the rule. Does it break the rule? I don't know.
You know who that's for? The creators of the rule.
Yeah.
Because all we know about this rule over the last 20 years is it's evolved and it's changed, and how it's written down, but what's a clear violation
I'll tell you what, if I'm the Giants, I'll tell you what I want. If I'm the New York Giants and I'm John Mara and I've been an owner longer, or my family has, longer than most of the other owners in this sport, I would want the same deal the NFL has with Dan Snyder in Washington when it comes to sexual harassment claims.
God.
That Dan Snyder gets to decide whether or not any of that information is ever released to the public or to anybody else. So he gets that deal for something equally as untoward, right, in the workplace.
Right.
So if I'm John Mara, I go to I don't know if it's Roger Goodell, whoever it is with the NFL, and I go, oh, timeout. The Mara family's been an owner since this league started. You just gave full autonomy to Daniel Snyder to release or not release damning evidence against him. I'd like the same deal. And then there's no Rooney Rule violation. So this should put a cap around the conversation today. But I do think after 2 days of the New York Giants being called racist and unprofessional and unfair and being raked through the mud, I applaud the Giants now that I have really time to review it. And for me, again, the game changer is the day he spent there. And I'm glad the Giants put it out. I am. So I think the Giants are the clear on this. Now, we can argue day and night, about the merits of this or the way they went about doing stuff. And that's all fine. The Giants have another problem on their hands right now. Patrick Graham, apparently, in the moment, is interviewing for every available defensive coordinator job on the planet. Now, I respect the Giants giving him the ability to look at other jobs because much like, he may want to work with McDaniels again like he did for a number of years in New England, and Josh is out in Vegas and obviously wants to potentially reunite and have Patrick come be their defensive coordinator, and Shane and Daboll may want a different guy that they're familiar with. I don't know. At some point, how many jobs are we going to let the guy interview for until we ask him to make a decision?
Okay, so here's the thing with that. When they fired Joe Judge, Patrick Graham's under contract, but they don't have a head coach.
Yep.
Patrick Graham says, I'd like to interview for head coaching jobs, which obviously the Giants can't stop.
And that's always a yes.
But I'd also like to interview for defensive coordinator jobs. And the Giants say yes. At this moment, they don't have a head coach. So he interviewed for the Pittsburgh Steelers job.
Right.
Once the Giants give permission for Patrick Graham to interview for other DC jobs, they can't stop giving permission.
Is that right? Oh, it's blanket?
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
So
I thought he has to ask every time.
Yeah, so when we hear the Giants allow Patrick Graham to interview for the Raider job, they've already allowed him to interview for the DC job. Yeah, but hold on.
That means if they give him permission to interview for the Steeler job, if the Cowboys, Redskins, Commodores, whatever they're called, or the Eagles came, that would apply to that too?
That is correct.
So it's a blanket permission.
Once the Giants grant permission for Graham to interview for a DC job, they cannot deny other requests.
Got it. All right, well, listen, we're going to get into that coming up after the break. We'll get all your calls as well.